Welcome back for another book review. Today we are talking about this one. So this is The Craft, A Witch's Book of Shadows by Dorothy Morrison. So I've loved the other books by Dorothy Morrison. I have her Everyday Sun Magic and Everyday Moon Magic. I've really liked those books. This one is definitely one of my new favorite books. As I've been mentioning, I'm getting more and more books from the library, which is awesome because there's some titles that like I wouldn't necessarily go buy because I'm like not really sure about them. But because it's at the library, it doesn't cost me anything, I'm more likely to read them. And so I've just been randomly just going down the list every time I search of like witchcraft, Wicca, paganism, Welland, whatever search will pull results. I just start going down the list. Every time I search it, it pulls different ones. So like, it's not even just like, oh, we're on page 2, page 3. No, like it's just random every time. And so this was one of those and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'll like it. But having read it, this is one that I will actually be going out and buying at some point. So this book is just so good. So it's definitely for beginners. And honestly, like, I'm kind of comparing it right now to the book that I'm working through, which is Outer Temple of Witchcraft. Ironically, also a green cover book. But like, this, I just feel like Morrison does a better job explaining some things. And like, the tools and stuff and getting to know the elements and things. There's just parts in this book that I think are better than even Penzak's books. And like, it's not that this book is perfect, and also really it is kind of small. There's a lot of an appendix at the back of the book, but like the information here is just so great. Like how you go about getting your tools. She doesn't go through all of them. She goes through like kind of your usual ones. And then there's like a bunch of ritual to do of like choosing it, blessing it, working with it. There's a lot of ritual involved, which I love. And then also, like, there's this affirmation to say with, like, the elements. Like, there's just so much in this book that I really love that it's like, I just need to go buy a copy of this book. Like, it's definitely one of those that I will be recommending for beginners. It is just, it's such a good book. I love the way she writes. It just honestly felt like a warm hug of a book. It's just down to earth, casual. It feels like you're just sitting with like an old grandma that's just telling you how to be a witch, and like it just is such a good book. She writes so well. This is definitely one of my favorites because like I said, there's stuff in here and like obviously it's very Wiccan, but it is a form of Wicca where it does try to balance things out a little bit better. Like spring and summer are for the goddess, autumn and fall are for the god, where we have the, you know, phases of the moon for the goddess. She includes stuff for the god for like the times of day. And so you have like the equivalency there. The only thing is that there isn't the equivalent of like celebrating the moon phases like opposed to the gods. Cause like the goddess is like, oh, but look, it's the full moon. We have to honor her. But then there's no like equivalent for the god. So that was kind of annoying. But that's just one of those things that just prevalent in Wicca that like, a lot of other like witchcraft and pagan beliefs kind of drop that part, and you either include both or you look at the moon not as the goddess but as like just a thing in the sky, or it's a specific deity or whatever. And once you get into other pantheons, there's a number of them where the moon is not associated with the goddess, it's actually with a god. So like it gets a little more complicated once you get outside of Wicca, but like as a beginner book, this is just so good. There's also parts in this book that I just love. For example, she talks about like the why for making rhymes in your spells, and at least she explains it, because a lot of times it's not really explained well, and like the reasonings aren't always like super solid. But for me, her explanation was like on point, really great, and like it's like, well, yeah, kind of. Same with like her explanation of like why the gods bother with us. Like there's just so much in here that is just so much fun to read. I absolutely love her writing, and like just there's so much of this book I could use. Now, is it all gonna work for me? No, I'm still not Wiccan. So like the Wheel of the Year and stuff like that, like it's not gonna completely work out for me because I'm just so over the concept of the Wheel of the Year has to fit a human cycle. Like the fact that it has to be a birth at Yule and like the goddess has to get pregnant and all of these things. Like that's just stuff I don't include because I'm really over the idea that like women are just, and like just the woman's body is just like so high up on a pedestal. Like it's just parts of my craft that I just will not include. It's one of the reasons I like being more on the pagan side, where like like right now it's Beltane working with Freya. Like she never becomes a mom. Like she's this really powerful goddess. She does a lot of things. She rules over a lot, but she's not a motherly figure. Unless you mix her and Frigg. If you put those into the one, then yes, but I'm in camp no, they're separate. But like, it's fun to have different deities and honor them in different ways. And so anyways, like there's little stuff like that where it's like, my will of the year isn't gonna match, but it is interesting to have in there nonetheless. She also talks about like the moons throughout the year, which I love, because again, like it's just random bits of information that as a beginner, it would be nice to know. She gives you ideas for stuff. And like there are some exercises in here. I don't think it goes for a full year, but it does give you quite a few months of exercises that you could do. Overall, I do wish that this had been one of my early books that I'd gotten on the craft, because I feel like it would have been so nice to use as like a reference and like a place to study from and move on from. Just like, again, I like her methods, I like her style, I like her explanations. This is definitely one of my highly beloved books. So I'm excited to go get me a copy of this one of these days. With that said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this book in the comments down below. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and bless be.